Hello and welcome to NTD News Today. Kevin Hogan here. Let's take a look at our top stories. Democrats giving themselves another month to reach a deal on President Biden's social spending package. This after the House delayed a vote on the smaller package twice last week. What's the holdup and why is one moderate concerned about the deadlock? No chance of a vaccine mandate for students in West Virginia, says the governor. This while in New York a teacher opts out of the vaccine despite the mandate. U.S. Marines deployed to Afghanistan return home after 9 Marines from their battalion were killed in a suicide bombing at the Kabul airport on August 26th. The biggest leak of offshore financial data in history allegedly ties world leaders to secret wealth. Some leaders have already denied wrongdoing. President Biden's heading to Michigan Tuesday. He's trying to build support for a pair of multi-trillion-dollar bills at the head of his agenda. Last week, the vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill was delayed twice. Now, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is pushing it back to the end of the month. NTD's Jessica Beatty reports.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said Sunday the new goal is to get both spending bills done in the next month. The obstacle? Coming up with a number for the larger social spending bill that progressive and moderate Democrats can agree on. The White House working with lawmakers to scale back President Biden's agenda to get more people on board. A top advisor says not everyone will be happy.
People will be disappointed. People will not get everything they want. That is the art of legislating. But the goal here is to get both bills, and we're going to fight until we get both bills.
Moderate Senator Joe Manchin said he won't go above $1.5 trillion on the social spending bill. But the chair of the Progressive Caucus told CNN that's not even close.
Well, that's not going to happen.
But
so it's going to be somewhere.
Why won't it add up to that
Because
number?
that's too small to get our priorities in. So it's going to be somewhere, between 1.5 and 3.5. And I think the White House is working on that right now.
Progressive Senator Bernie Sanders told ABC Sunday he thinks $3.5 trillion should be the minimum, but he accepts there'll have to be give and take. He later told NBC he thinks both bills will eventually pass.
So this is not a wish list. This is what the working families of this country want and what the economy needs. But the question now is whether the Democrats can come together, and I think that we can.
While the new deadline gives Democrats more time to negotiate, moderate Kyrsten Sinema believes it could hurt momentum for Republican support for the smaller bipartisan infrastructure bill. And some Republicans seem to agree.
When that bipartisan bill passed a 50-50 Senate, it had 69 votes. There was a lot of momentum on its side. In any kind of a normal world, that would have been signed into law by the president. This was 2 months ago.
Some analysts and lawmakers warn that the massive spending package will further drive up inflation, something Biden and progressives have denied. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
The Biden administration announces its new strategy on trade relations with China. Senior officials said earlier it would include removing tariffs on more Chinese goods. U.S. Trade Representative Katherine Tai is speaking about the new policy at a Washington think tank today. She planned to focus on the bilateral trade agreement put in place by the Trump administration and the tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars of Chinese imports. The U.S. wants China to commit to the agreements made under Phase 1 of the Trump administration's trade deal, but does not plan to pursue a Phase 2. Then, the U.S. side will see what tariffs it can remove from Chinese goods. The administration also said earlier that China simply may not change its unfair trade practices and that the U.S. needs a strategy to deal with that possibility. West Virginia Governor Jim Justice announced that he will not mandate vaccinations for children attending school. This comes as a federal agency says Biden's vaccine mandate for federal workers can be enforced starting next month. Governor Justice's announcement came on Sunday in an interview with CBS's Meet the Press. He says there's no chance he'll mandate COVID vaccinations for school children, saying it's divisive.
I truly believe that the mandates only divide us and only divide us more. From the standpoint of mandates, I don't believe in imposing upon our freedoms over and over and over, and I've said that over. I don't know how many times I got to say it.
Justice says he will encourage people to get the vaccine, but he says they still need to stand up for who they are. Furthermore, Justice is blaming President Biden for his state's deficit of monoclonal antibody treatments for the virus. The White House didn't immediately respond to a request for comment, but Biden's vaccine mandate for federal workers can be enforced starting in November. That's according to the Federal Office of Personnel Management. That gives employees about a month to get a vaccine. The director released a memo on Friday advising federal workers they shouldn't wait until the last minute to do so. The director said that's because other events often interfere with even well laid out plans. Non-compliant employees may be disciplined, including being fired from federal jobs, but people who have a legal exemption are off the hook. All this while a New York City teacher has decided not to get the vaccine in the face of the mandate. Stephanie Edmonds says she has a deep religious objection and the vaccine goes against her faith, and that she looked towards Judaism for guidance.
And this is the decision that I've come to between me and God. And it's not an easy decision, in the face of doing what I love and being so dedicated and, really caring about my students. Over the past 3 weeks, I've built relationships with the students from my current students, but the seniors, I've had them, I've known them for 4 years.
Edmonds said she, her lawyer, the Department of Education, a union representative, and the arbitrator met Thursday. She says unless something changes, the department considers her a threat to public health, and she would lose her job on Monday. NYC Public Schools did not immediately respond to her request for comment. A large oil spill off the Southern California coast devastated wildlife and closed beaches on Sunday. It's one of the largest oil spills in recent California history. Crews worked around the clock to limit environmental damage. An investigation into the pipeline leak that caused the spill is underway. An estimated 126,000 gallons, or 3,000 barrels, had spread into an oil slick covering about 13 square miles of the Pacific Ocean since it was first reported on Saturday morning. Huntington Beach, about 40 miles south of Los Angeles, was bearing the brunt of the spill. The mayor of the city called the spill an environmental catastrophe. The spill was caused by a breach connected to the Ellie oil rig and stretched from the Huntington Beach Pier down to a Newport Beach, the stretch of popular coastline with surfers and sunbathers. The oil rig was operated by Beta Offshore, a California subsidiary of Houston-based Amplify Energy Corporation. Calls to Beta and Amplify went unanswered. Officials said they were investigating the cause of the spill and the type of oil involved. U.S. Marines who had been deployed to Afghanistan returned home on Sunday. They could finally hug their families, unlike the 9 Marines from their battalion who were killed in a suicide bombing at the Kabul airport. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
Scott Wiles was part of the motorcycle escort for the Marines over the final 50 miles of their journey home.
To come back to an empty parade deck was not something that the Patriot Guard was going to let happen. We were invited by the Marines to be here. That's why we were here. So we escorted them from March Air Force Base all the way to Fallbrook, through the Naval Weapons Station, then in through Pendleton all the way to here to the parade deck.
Marines from the 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines Regiment, were on duty outside the Kabul airport on August 26, the day a suicide bomber killed 13 American service members and scores of Afghans. 9 Marines from the battalion and a Navy sailor also based at Camp Pendleton were among the 13 killed. 2 additional Marines and an Army soldier also died.
What we want them to do is know that civilians, veterans, people in the area care about what it is that they do and what they're doing for us as a country.
The Marines were killed less than 10 days after the Taliban seized Kabul, culminating in a swift takeover of the country as American forces withdrew from the 20-year war. The Marines had been attempting to protect the airport during a chaotic U.S. airlift. Eventually, 124,000 people were able to get out of the country, including U.S. citizens, Afghan allies, and their families. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
An alarming report on the U.S. military this Sunday. According to data from the Department of Defense, the suicide rate among active duty service members has gone up by more than 40% over 5 years. The data says in 2020, there was a 9.1% increase in the rate for active duty service members. Among reserve members, it went up by 19.2% last year, but has gone down since 2018. And though the rate for National Guard members went up by almost 32%, it also decreased in the past 2 years. In 2020 alone, 580 members of the military died by suicide. In a statement, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said in part the findings are troubling and that the trends are not going in the right direction. U.S. prosecutors charged a Saudi-born Canadian man for aiding the Islamic State terrorist group, alleging he tossed grenades in battle and worked with propagandists who publicized the beheading of hostages, including journalist James Foley.
The U.S. has charged a Saudi-born Canadian man for aiding the Islamic State militant group. The man has been identified as Mohammed Khalifa, seen here in an interview.
I was doing very well for myself, and I decided to give it up.
Prosecutors allege that he tossed grenades in battle and worked with propagandists who publicized the beheading of hostages, including U.S. journalist James Foley. The Department of Justice described him as a leading figure in the English-language media unit of the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. The department said Khalifa narrated English-language recruitment videos and was a battlefield fighter before he was captured in 2019 by the US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces. He was recently arrested by the FBI. Charges against him were unsealed on Saturday in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia. If convicted, Khalifa faces up to life in prison.
A plane crash causes havoc on a Texas highway Saturday. Prior to the accident, the plane was displayed as a float in the 2021 Rice Festival parade. Video from the Chambers County Sheriff's Office shows that a yellow plane overturned and crashed onto Highway 124 and Broadway Avenue in Winnie, Texas. Authorities say the craft was supposed to be returned to the airport by tow, but someone thought it might be quicker and easier to fly it back instead. There were no reports of any injuries. The cause of the crash has yet to be confirmed, but the Sheriff's Department says weather was probably a factor. Coming up, the Nobel Prize in Medicine goes to 2 American scientists. The award group says the discoveries could lead to new kinds of painkillers. Troubles continue to mount for Chinese property giant Evergrande. Trading in the company's shares was halted. Find out more here on NTD News.
You worked hard for your money. You invest in stability for your retirement and your family's future, to build and leave them with something greater. The next unprecedented financial crisis, political misstep, or unstable government can depreciate it all away. It was called the gold standard for a reason, the financial preservation of tomorrow. Diversify your assets against inflation, market volatility, and the unknown with real money. Hedge your wealth with the purest form of money, physical gold and silver. Because any currency printed on paper can be manipulated. What's backing up your IRA? Do what you need to do right now to be prepared with the Reagan Gold Group. Visit now, rggusakit.com, or call us at 866-912-1384. Receive up to $2,500 in free silver coins and a free safe with your new precious metals IRA. Call now.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Two American scientists win the 2021 Nobel Prize for Medicine. The prize-giving body says their discoveries on sense receptors could pave the way for new painkillers.
The Nobel Assembly at Karolinska Institutet has today decided to award the 2021 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine jointly to David Julius and Ardem Pataputian. David Julius was born in 1955 in New York. He performed his prize-winning studies at University of California, San Francisco, where he's still active.
The Nobel Assembly says the two scientists' discoveries in temperature and touch receptors are being used to develop treatments for a wide range of diseases. The two scientists' findings on heat, cold, and mechanical force sensations were discovered independently of one another. The prize is worth $1.1 million and will be shared between the two men. The Nobel Prize for Physiology or Medicine is less famous than those for literature and peace and usually involves people who are lesser known. A massive leak of financial documents, known as the Pandora Papers, was published over the weekend. According to several major news organizations, the papers allegedly tied world leaders to secret stores of wealth, including King Abdullah of Jordan, Czech Prime Minister Andrej Babiš, and associates of Russian President Vladimir Putin.
The dump of almost 12 million records comes 5 years after the leak known as the Panama Papers, which exposed how money was hidden by the wealthy in ways undetectable by law enforcement agencies. The International Consortium of Investigative Journalists said the new trove of files were linked to dozens of current and former national leaders and amount to the biggest leak of offshore data in history. However, the group did not say how the files were obtained. Among the claims are that Jordan's King Abdullah, a close ally of the United States, used offshore accounts to spend more than $100 million on luxury homes in the US and UK. Lawyers representing Abdullah told the consortium he had not, quote, made any use whatsoever of the proceeds of aid or assistance intended for public use. The Washington Post, which is part of the network, reported on the case of Svetlana Krivonagich, a Russian woman who the paper says was in a secret relationship with President Vladimir Putin. The Post says that just weeks after she gave birth to a baby girl in 2003, she became the owner of a Monaco apartment through an offshore company. The Kremlin did not respond to requests for comment. The documents also allege that the Czech Republic's Prime Minister, Andrej Babiš, owned an offshore estate worth $22 million on the French Riviera. Babiš on Sunday denied any wrongdoing.
A Chinese property giant is causing jitters throughout the country's financial system. Trading in Evergrande shares stopped today after claims the indebted developer missed another major bond interest payment. Hong Kong's stock exchange says shares of one of the company's units were also suspended, but they didn't say why. And it's also not clear who halted the shares. Evergrande's liabilities were worth about 2% of China's GDP, so its woes are concerning for the country's financial system and potential knock-on effects around the world. Though China's central bank did promise to protect homebuyers' interests. Shares in Evergrande have plunged 80% so far this year, while its property services unit has dropped 43%. Meanwhile, the group is scrambling to raise funds to pay its many lenders and suppliers. Speculations are rising over whether Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte's daughter will run for president in next year's election. Her father's longtime aide, who filled his vice presidential candidacy, could join the campaign as her running mate.
Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte fueled more speculation over whether his daughter would run for national office next year. National broadcaster ABS-CBN reported an exchange with Duterte in which he seemed to confirm Sara Duterte Carpio would run with one of his longtime aides as vice president. Duterte Carpio had previously denied having any intentions to run. Instead, she has filed for re-election as mayor of Davao, a city in the south and the country's third largest. However, political analysts have been skeptical. With more than a month to go before candidates are finalized, Duterte Carpio could still announce her run much later. Analysts say it could parallel her father's story in 2015, when he entered at the last minute and won by a huge margin. They also said Duterte's surprise announcement on Saturday that he would retire could also be clearing the way for his daughter's presidential run. Duterte Carpio's spokesperson did not comment on the matter.
One of the biggest lottery jackpots ever is getting bigger. The winning numbers for an estimated $635 million Powerball jackpot were drawn on Saturday. The Multi-State Lottery Association says there were no winners. Saturday's jackpot was the 10th largest in U.S. lottery history. The drawing was Powerball's 6th largest ever. Powerball now has the jackpot at $670 million. The next drawing is set for Monday, October 4th. Lockdowns around the world have sparked a flurry of ideas to fill the time spent indoors. In Northern Ireland, a decorator was inspired to turn his family's barn into a traditional Irish pub, and it boasts a unique connection to the Titanic. Let's take a look.
When lockdowns closed pubs in County Tyrone, Northern Ireland, an artist hatched the idea to build one of his own. Through 1,000 hours of work and sourcing artifacts from as far away as France and Italy, he recreated a traditional Irish bar in his own shed.
The whole idea and the ethos behind it was to actually take skills from the business, as master specialist decorators, and transfer them into a bar, so we thought.
Devlin is a master specialist decorator under the European company Devlin in Design. Prior to the revamp, his family's barn was a dull white color, typical of those found in rural Ireland. It now takes on a new look, featuring a main bar area and a lounge with a traditional turf fire. A dark seating area is set aside for card games. But the space's appeal isn't just skin deep. For one, the bar has an interesting connection to the Titanic, with its back door taken from the Belfast shipyard where the luxury liner was built.
And so this door here is a big key feature here in the bar. It actually comes from the old Harlan and Wolff's drawing rooms where they built the Titanic. Now, it was in a state of complete disrepair, so we didn't grain it back to the way it was. But the glass maintained its whole character, as you can see, and it's still in really, really good shape.
The bar is also home to many centuries-old artifacts collected by Devlin and his wife, ranging from books to windows. It all helps create an authentic Irish atmosphere.
At the end of the day, it all goes down to what represents an old Irish bar. What is that authenticity? It's Shebeen-esque, creating that whole Shebeen atmosphere.
A shebeen was an illicit bar where alcohol was served without a license. The term has spread around the world, but originates in Ireland. Once the center of the town's community, Irish pubs used to sell basic groceries in earlier days.
Like your meats, you had your butchery department, you had your pub itself, you had your sweets, you had different things, but they're all kept in and around that whole, the public bar.
Devlin hopes to replicate the bar for international clients keen to recreate Irish life in their own homes. But his own bar is, above all, a private family one.
American Jason Lentz put his lumberjack skills to the test and walked away with a title at the Timber Sports World Championships in Munich, Germany. Lentz showed off his skills with axes, saws, and power chainsaws. His talent gave him a narrow win over the second and third place winners from Canada and the Czech Republic. Each of the 12 finalists competed in 6 events like standing block chop, springboard, and hot saw. More points were awarded for faster cut times. The 3 finalists celebrated and kept the champagne flowing after the event. Steel Timber Sports started holding competitions in 1985. It now holds national championships in 27 countries. It also includes women's and collegiate divisions and features team and individual competitions. Thanks for watching. At NTD, we're honored to be your source for the news. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. In New York City, I'm Kevin Hogan.
Before you go, here's something you should know. Don't forget you can catch all of NTD's programs on television. NTD Business premieres live Mondays through Fridays at 5 p.m. We broadcast to many of your favorite platforms, Apple TV and Roku, for example. We're also rapidly growing on cable, satellite, and over-the-air all across the United States. Just go to ntd.com/TV, type in your zip code, and find all the ways you can watch NTD.